Okay, so welcome to the 36th video community of practice meeting. I'm Pankaj Agrawal, founder of Next Software Solutions and working group leader of this community of practice. So let's get started. There are several agenda items that I have. We can go through them quickly. So I changed. Uh, we have been discussing this since last few months, I guess. I've changed the RFC 1776 to RFC 5646 in the CC subtitle language. So I have made that change in the Git book. Let me check it. Yeah. So this is where I have made this change. Is there any objection on this? So I think we are fine with that. We might, if this is mentioned in, I think it is not mentioned in the JSON LD file, but if it is mentioned there, we might need to change it there as well.
Okay, yeah, let me make a note of that. I don't think I updated that.
Yeah.
So just mention in the description that we're following RFC 5646 language.
Yeah, we can do that. So yeah. Currently, I guess no RFC is mentioned, so depends what you want to do. Currently, there might only be the description, so this additional information might not be there. Should we include this in the LRP obligation or just in the usage?
Where is the LRP section?
If you see this screen I'm on.
Oh, okay. I think putting it in usage is sufficient.
Okay. Fine. So next thing I made a change. There was a message, I think, from someone in the H5P group regarding the length value. Currently it was defined as integer. So there was an objection that it should be float because the time value is float. So it is mentioned as value must be integer. It makes sense that the length also should be a float value with 3 decimal points because the time value we are using everywhere is also a float value. So if any video is not exact integer of second, um, an integer length might create issues. So I have already made a change. I don't know why it is not reflecting here. But I've changed it to value must be a float value with maximum 3 decimals. Does it make sense, or we should, for any reason, stick to integer?
Yeah, I mean, that seems consistent with the other time values we're tracking, right?
Yeah. So one issue, if we don't do decimals, one issue that can happen is that if the length value is in integer, and maybe if it is integer, it might be rounded off to the nearest integer. So even if the user reaches the end, it might be like 70.6 seconds, and the length might be 71 seconds because it is rounded off. So it won't, even if he reaches the end of the video, it might not be calculated as 100%. So it is consistent with the time, and it will solve those kind of issues. So you might need to make this change in JSON LD document.
Okay.
So it will change the integer to float, and if you're mentioning 3 decimals, you can mention that there.
And you're making these updates as we're in here in GoodBook, so I can just go over there and find the updates, right?
Yeah. I don't know why it didn't update on this page. Probably because tabs. Now I can see that.
When did we add the length extension? Because I'm not finding it in here, and I'm wondering if I just missed that.
How?
Did that replace another extension name, or?
No, it didn't replace, but when we initially had all those extensions, we had not added the length extension. It was added later when we faced the issue that when calculating completion and those kind of things, it was, or sorry, when calculating progress, we were not able to find out how to calculate progress without knowing the length of the video. So we added the length extension at a later stage after we built the prototype, or when we were building the prototype. So maybe it is not in the JSON document at all. Um, Apart from that, I added this completion threshold. So extension one.
Sorry, I lost my connection there.
Okay.
So you were saying, what is the length extension tied to? Which statements should it be part of?
I think it's just an initialized, isn't it?
Is it just initialized?
It might make
Put in
sense.
completed.
It might make sense to add it to everywhere we have
And it's the
played segments.
It's a context extension too, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I was saying that it might make sense to add it to everywhere we have played segments.
Okay.
Any problem with that?
I don't have a problem with it. It feels like it just might be just more bloat in the statements. I'm sure there's a scenario somewhere where somebody wants to only query one place statement and have the length with it, but I don't know. I guess I like to keep anything that's static in the initialized statement as much as possible.
Yeah, but the experience API statements are in itself kind of same thing being sent over and over, like the description of the object or the definition. Or
Yeah, I get what you're saying. I'm not against it.
I agree with that point, but so yeah.
I abstain.
So right now we're sending played segments with what? Is it the played verb and paused and completed?
We are sending it with completed, terminated, and paused.
But not played.
Not played, I guess. I don't know. Let me, yeah. I guess it is not very.
Well, I mean, you don't have to look. I just want to make sure I tie the link one to the right places. And you guys said anywhere that played segments is sent, or should it be with? Okay.
Yeah. So if it makes sense, we can also add to the initialized. So it can be initialized and initialized, paused, completed, and terminated.
I guess it could make sense if you wanted to carry over what has been played from a prior.
But is it the length? Is it the length of the video? Like it's always going to be the same. It's like if the video is 3 minutes and 6 seconds long, you're just telling the length of the video.
In the length extension, yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Time is how long?
But not played segments, right? Because we were talking about played segments.
Okay.
I've added this additional statement. It must be included in video profile statements with these verbs initialized, completed, terminated, and paused. And yeah, completion threshold. This is what I have added. You can see my screen. In the description, I have said that completion threshold specifies the percentage of media that should be consumed to trigger completion. I mentioned it as optional. Value must be between 0 and 1. Value must be a float value with maximum 3 decimals. If completion threshold is not included, it is assumed to be 1, that is 100%. If completion threshold is not 1, it must be included in video profile statements with these verbs initialized, completed, terminated, and paused.
Sounds good to me.
So in essence, if completion threshold is 100%, it doesn't need to be anywhere. So it should be included only when we need a completion which is not 100%. So this also needs to be included in the JSON LD.
Completion threshold. Okay.
So this is a new extension.
Completion threshold. Okay, got it. I'll just copy it over here from Getbook.
And I guess we also need to include it in the video vocab.pub.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, that'll get updated from this JSON LD document. It synchronizes with it. That's the update I'm going to do with Andy tomorrow after I make the updates to this JSON LD file. It'll get imported in there. So a completion threshold, that's a context extension?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, so if anyone has an objection with this context extension, we can think about it. Otherwise,
does completion threshold need to be set with any particular statements?
Yeah, so I mentioned it. If you see in my screen, if completion threshold is not 1, it must be included in video profile statements with these verbs initialized, completed, terminated, and paused.
Okay, so same as length.
Yeah, but yeah. So this is also optional, but if it is included, it should be included in all these four statements.
Should we make length also optional in these templates?
Length. Let me
Or is
check
that
what it is, but I think it should be required. Yeah, I've written optional, but I think we should make it required. Unless there is a reason to make it optional.
Seems like pretty important context to me. I would make it required. What is the litmus test for whether or not something should be required or optional? Just our opinion.
Yeah, that's a good question, I guess, because it could depend on your video and your capabilities of if you have an API to get this information and set it, because sometimes you might not be able to set all of this. With using the video profile, almost seems like a lot of these we can put in here into the templates and make them, because when you, according to the profile spec, you make things either included or recommended instead of like required or optional. That's the words that are used for this JSON schema stuff. But I mean, if we want it to be flexible, that anyone could implement, the basics around the video profile, probably some of them should be optional, but I don't know. It's hard to say because we don't have a way to, test and for conformance yet. We don't have like a validation tool to really
Yeah, but
prove.
most of the extensions are optional, but length is something like if you don't know the length, you don't know the completion. So you cannot mark a video as completed unless you know
Gotcha.
the length of the video. So it is uh, it is a question similar to asking whether completion statement should be optional.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yep. Okay. Length is required. Got it.
Let me check. Yeah. So next thing I wanted to talk about is I see that John. I think John has added these templates, which is really good. But should we change the templates to statements instead of code?
Change them to statements instead of what?
Currently, if you see my screen,
Oh, instead of code. Yeah. I think that'd be a good idea.
so
Instead of
currently it is
these.
like session ID and full screen sort of, not screen size. So probably we need to change all these to some example values
Yeah.
and remove this var equal to.
Yeah, that's fine with me. We probably need to review them again just to make sure they all meet up to the spec. I think they did at the time, but there might be stuff missing now.
Because we have worked with the prototype, we understand this, but someone who is looking only to the template files and the video profile, they might not be able to understand some of this.
Yeah, for sure. I'm cool with. Is that the only change you mean then? Is just replacing like the property, like the end of the extensions with an actual value? Is that the only difference?
Yeah, only these variables to some example value.
Okay.
Okay, so will you do it or? Do you want?
Yeah, I think I can probably get around to that this weekend.
Okay, thank you.
Put that in my calendar.
Next thing was yeah. So we had discussed releasing this video profile. So before that, we need to decide or discuss what things we need to do before we can say that it is a released version. So any suggestions or anything?
Is the video? I mean, I don't know what to do with the spec. I think when we quote unquote release it, it'd be nice to say what is compliant with the spec to what extent. So I can summarize that for H5P. Has Video.js been updated? Is it whatever your version is, Jason? Is that one still completely compliant with the spec?
I haven't checked that in a while. It's whatever the last version was that we used.
So I would say we probably need to at least update that. I can put together what the current. Well,
what do you mean? Is there a new version of Video.js out? Is that what you're asking?
No. Just that if we made any changes to the spec, that it's reflected in the Video.js demo tool.
Yeah. I don't know that I don't think any of these new changes with length or anything has been added, or closed captioning or anything like that.
I think it'd be good to update that so there is a working profile compliant prototype. We're still waiting for H5P to move forward on all of our changes, but at the very least, I can put together an example or a table or something that says what H5P is compliant with, which is most stuff, and what it still needs to do.
Okay.
There's some stuff we just don't have any control over, like YouTube, for example. There's just some things you can't do with the API. So.
Yeah.
I haven't worked with the prototype for a long time, but I guess Jason, you were facing some issues related to YouTube, I guess, and probably you made some changes. Were those issues resolved?
Yeah, there was. I mean, somebody from that community made another library that made it so you could just drop in YouTube videos into the Video.js. Reference those into the Video.js embeds, and some of the changes we had made to tracking 100% progress in the played segments, like made it not work anymore. So I don't know. I didn't have time to really dig into all of that, and it was a third-party person that made that little library. So I figured go back and revisit the YouTube stuff later if we wanted to drop a YouTube video in there, but it wasn't working. I couldn't, I think I opened up a couple issues around what I thought some of the things were, but I couldn't troubleshoot it.
Okay, and I think you mentioned disabling some extension, I guess, screen size or something due to some issue. I don't remember at all.
I don't know either.
Do you remember? Okay.
I have to go back and look through my email brain.
Yeah, we can check the email, or we can check the last few commits.
Yeah.
Or if we are updating these new extensions, like if the length, I guess length was already added, but if it is not added, we can add them. And when you do that, you might see if something is missing.
Okay.
Okay, so next thing, I think one of the things that we discussed was checking if there is any inconsistencies between Gitbook and JSON-LD, and the published vocabulary is output of JSON-LD, so that one problem is resolved. But
Yep.
checking consistency between Gitbook and JSON-LD, that is one thing that we should probably do before Polymet release.
Got it. Got that down as a action item for me to go look at. Do a double check.
Okay. Another thing that I think we discussed was adding some information related to people or projects implementing Video.js, to compile all the implementations of Video.js somewhere, so that it helps new people understand who is using it, or if there are things like the prototype we have, those kind of things can help them just get started right away.
Okay.
So are there any other implementations apart from our prototype and H5P?
The main one was the video community or not the video community practice, the video cohort that John and I were involved in, and we used the Video.js demo for that. So I need to go and update that as well.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know that I should. I mean, I think we're finished collecting data on that, so I don't think those changes would change the results of anything. So.
Yeah, I also had been working on a tool that would dynamically generate visualizations for assessments in videos for H5P. I don't know how related that is, how important that is for this release, but one of my colleagues was working on an automatic visualization of the heat map using D3 for any profile compliant data collection source. So we can post that on the site too once it's done. He was pretty much there. I just haven't checked with him in a couple of weeks. So that's something else that we can share, some free open source code for people to do something with the data.
Yeah, that'll be great. And if we can add some screenshots or some live demo or something that gives an idea of what the code is about.
Yeah, I don't see why we couldn't do a live demo. What is the release to be through Gitbook, right? Can you embed a D3 visualization in a Gitbook? Which you could, right?
I don't have any idea.
It's just all HTML files, I think. So I don't see why not. I don't know. I can try to find and see. If so, we could have a live version in the Gitbook, as long as one of you two is willing to host the data somewhere.
Okay. Yeah. So if that can be done, it would be great. But if that cannot be done, and if we can give a link of something or add some images at least.
Yeah, definitely can add images. I'll poke around and see if I can figure out if we can do a D3 viz in Gitbook, and if not, then
yeah, if we can do it in Gitbook, or if we can do it on GitHub, and then we can give a link on Gitbook. That.
Yeah, we can definitely. Yeah. So I mean, I started a repo for a number of D3 visualizations using xAPI data that I wanted to share, but I sort of paused on it because of work stuff. So, but I can push the heat map to that repo and just leave that one available for anybody. And we can link to that from the Gitbook. Yeah, that's an option. So I'll check with my colleague and see how far he is on his heat map viz, and just take it from there.
Okay. Yeah, so if we can compile some information on all these implementations, can be a boost for someone trying to implement, and they'll realize that yes, it is being used somewhere.
So yeah, the profile is being used in other places, and I'm trying to remember everywhere it was. I know it came up a couple times during the xAPI cohort. There was a guy in Europe somewhere who I think they were using the video profile in like Kaltura or something. I have to double check it.
I think it was Kaltura.
Was it? Yeah. I don't think he ever shared a repo link with me though, so I'll have to try to find his name again. And then Shelly's group, Get Analytics, was using the video profile for something too, but I don't know what they extended. I don't remember at least.
That's right, and they had given us some of the feedback that we
Yeah.
I don't know exactly what they put it in, so we'll have to just talk to them about that. So there's at least those, but maybe we could hit up the forums, some of the xAPI forums or meetings, and ask if anybody is aware of any other uses of it.
Yeah. So, anything else we need to do?
So I'm kind of starting this group doing a social profile now for social communication tools, building a little bit off of what Kirsty Kiddo did. I don't know if you guys know her work, but she had done this CL something toolkit, which had a recipe back when it was recipes for Facebook and Twitter and Google and a bunch of other more social general tools. But we're going to be expanding it to include discussion forums and chat and stuff. And anyways,
there was a there was a community of practice for social, but I don't know where they.
I don't think they ever did anything. It was like a couple of people from IBM, I believe, is Oddity and I forget the other guy's name from IBM, but Kirby Bill. Yeah, I don't think they ever. I don't know if they ever shared anything or they kept the meetings going, but I was subscribed to that and haven't seen anything for quite a while.
They had created a list of verbs, but I don't know if they did anything beyond that.
Yeah.
I don't know if they added links to the verb or anything else.
I'll take a look for the thread though, and see if I'll invite them to come back if they want
to. Yeah. So if you're working on it, maybe you can check with them and see if they had done anything, and you can use some of it.
So the reason I bring it up is that a lot of members in the group, or some of the members in the group that are participating, are researchers, and so we're building the profile based off of, or extending the old profile based on some particular visualization and research goals, case studies that they're going for. So the reason I bring it up is that what would be nice now, I think, is if we could find some people who are published or researched with videos that we could use to extend the profile to include more case studies and an example for different tools or analytics that can be produced on video. And I know I can think of a few people that I've read about that might be interesting to invite. If you guys think that would be a good next step.
Sure.
Yeah, if anyone is using video profile for, especially for analytics, it is great. And it'll help those who want to analyze the data from the video, because so far I don't think it is easy to analyze video related data unless someone has built some custom code for it.
There's some research out there, but not as much as you would think for something that's a part of like every distance education course.
Yeah.
So it's a little shocking. Anyways, obvious question maybe, but that to me in my mind is the next step of the profile, is to try to get some more direction, research, case study driven additions added.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, did we say the length is in milliseconds or seconds?
I think we're doing it in seconds. I'm not sure. Let me check.
It is seconds with decimal places. So accuracy will be in milliseconds.
Gotcha.
Okay, sounds right.
Next thing was, should we discuss those emails? Where it was?
Sure. Were there some questions? Yeah, I think there was one or two questions remaining still.
I was not able to check the last few emails from there. Where is it? Video. Is there anything that we should discuss on this?
I'm trying to find the email.
It is in the prototype GitHub issues, issue 21.
Yeah, okay. I found it in my email memory.
I had responded to the initial emails. The last email was, yes, I'm familiar with session ID. You answered my question with using statement ID. So
Yeah, that one looks like that was answered.
registration as a static constant that is predefined. But if we use registration,
Statement.
I don't know which example repo he's referring to. But if I read the specs,
I'm still reading this last email. So he was asking whether or not it made sense for time at which a change event occurs. In this case, they're talking about closed captioning to be an appropriate result for this statement versus, I'm assuming, true or false for success or completion or whatever the other property is.
which issue are you referring to?
This is number 22. His last response.
Okay, I was looking at 21, so let me come to 22.
I think you closed out 21. I'm not sure there's anything left to answer there.
No, he has added 2 more responses.
I'll open it up. I'm not seeing it in my email.
Okay. So the last message here is thank you for the thoughts. Result in the statement time. The statement is triggered with the change to the closed caption outputs. With the change. Seems odd that the result would be time.
Yeah, so I'm reading. I went back to read 21, the one that you mentioned. It still seems like this issue is closed. It's just a matter of agreeing, because yeah,
Well,
I mean,
he's trying to understand the meaning of registration, or trying to explain that. But even if the meaning can be open, I guess we have very clear meaning in video profile.
Yeah, so we could probably just respond adjusting his last sentence there. Registration is a property that can be used in different ways for codifying associations across profiles, but it should be consistent within the profile at the very least. That seems to be the specs perspective, since it is taking a rather general approach to defining what registration is. As I understand it, I'm sure Jason's had more talks about this than I have.
Well, I don't think. I think even in xAPI spec, registration has a very clear meaning. So we are in video profile. We are consistent with that meaning. So it can be used with an attempt. It can be used with a session or span multiple activities. So it is true with video profile as well. There is no expectation that completing an activity ends a registration, which is true with video profile as well. Nor is a registration necessarily confined to a single agent.
Yeah, I agree that we're compliant with the definition that the spec leaves, but I would agree with him too that there's a lot of room for interpretation with what exactly you do use the registration for. The way that I've always thought of it as a tool to link statements across whatever time or construct you want to use to organize them. But it doesn't ever directly say that, at least not in that one sentence that he.
Yeah, so in video profile as well, we are trying to solve many problems with the registration value.
Sure, yeah.
So there were objections on why should we use the same registration value. Then the answer was yes, you can change the registration value on every attempt. So in that case, that registration value would be for that specific attempt only. So it would not span to multiple sessions. But if we are using same registration value, it would span to multiple sessions. So in that case, if it is on multiple sessions, means if completing this activity doesn't end the registration, it would continue.
Yep. Yeah, I look at it as an implementation option. You know, if you like, I think the way Pankaj implemented it was with the something with the state API too, so that you could resume where you left off in the video, right?
We didn't use the state API. We were using the registration and paused. So we were using the paused statement to resume as well as to calculate the completion over multiple sessions.
But not everybody will want that kind of functionality. Some people may want, you know, the video to stop at the end and start all over at the beginning when they relaunch it. So I think it's what I'm saying is it's an implementation detail of whether or not you want to use registration.
Yeah.
I think I've got the last update I made. I had commented it out so that you could use it or not use it depending on what you wanted to do.
It was like if you are using registration, if you should use random registrations if you don't want to use if you don't want the values to span to the completion to span to multiple attempts.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, I think in the demo though, I had commented out 2 options. You could keep a static registration ID if you did want to do that. If you didn't, you could have it generate a random one. So depending on what you want to do, you can comment out that variable, that registration variable.
And I think it was using from the URL as well.
Yeah.
So when I was using it with my own plugin, I could just use the registration value generated by the plugin, and the prototype would use that. Okay, so I'll respond to him. There is nothing specific to changes in our profile. So let's check 22 the results. He's talking about time, and he's saying why time should be result, and he says that when closed caption changes, the time is in the result. So why should time be in the result?
I think our intent was just to track when the event occurred. So I don't think. I mean, that's why I would say it was there. We could, if we wanted to, include a Boolean in the result for whether or not the closed captioning was successful, I guess, since that's what he's saying he wants to.
No, he's trying to understand why time should be in the result extension, and if time is a result, how is it as a result in this situation?
But that's just That's just when you're changing the closed captioning feature on or off.
Mm-hmm.
He's giving an example, so it should the same example, same thing should apply. His question should apply to multiple situations.
Right. Yeah, I don't know if there is a good reason why we're sending time. Is there? I don't know. Just because you may want to know what time they actually changed the interaction on or off. Maybe certain points in the video may require that the audio is bad, so maybe they want to enable closed captioning. You maybe want to see when that point in the video was.
Yeah, I mean that's a good example. I couldn't think of one, but that one makes sense. Either way, I think it makes sense to record when the event occurred, since the medium itself, the video, is pretty much based on time. So it makes sense to me that you would want to know when a change to any functionality in the video would occur in order to understand how it impacted learning.
Yeah, but his question is if we want to know when it occurred and we are storing it, still why that time is a result.
Versus the context. So the question isn't whether or not we should save it. The question is why is it in result versus somewhere else.
Yeah. So his question is why is it as result?
I don't know. I sometimes struggle with the test there between context and result.
Yeah, same with me.
Can you clarify? It seems that time in all the statements here is the standard result type. I don't know what he means by that.
You said all required. Where can I find what is required? Seems to me all the extensions are optional.
I think he's saying we store the time as a result in most stuff.
I'm not ready to follow the assumption that if the volume is 0 or screen size is too small, that the user is not learning. I didn't say the user is not learning. For example, what about blind and deaf people? Furthermore, I haven't seen learning analysis and validation codify anywhere in the spec. Nor do I believe that it should be, but that's not what I'm asking. Is there such spec as volume equal to 0 means user was not listening to the audio? So this point he's mentioning, is this such? This is clearly mentioned that volume equal to 0 means mute, and if it is mute, user cannot listen. There is no audio. So, and he's asking about codifying in this spec. So we are not codifying. We are just uh, when we are saying volume between 0 and 1, we are scaling it between 0 and 1. So it is kind of percentage of the total volume. So it's not decibel or anything. Please share a link and teach me an example. What I really want to know is whether there are indeed requirements for these properties.
I'm not really sure that there's a lot going on in this little paragraph here. So I'm not ready to follow the assumption that if the volume is 0 or the screen size is too small, the user is not learning. I don't think we're implying that. I think it's just we're just collecting the information about what's going on, not implying whether or not learning is occurring in that scenario.
Earlier he was asking whether these extensions can be just left out, like if it is optional, why should we include it? So just don't include anything. So I said that some of them you might want to include some of them because they'll give some useful information, like if we have volume equal to 0, it means that it is mute. I didn't mention mute, so I said if volume is 0, it means the user is not listening. Or if the screen size is 1 pixel by 1 pixel, that means he's not watching the video. So that information might be useful to know. So for that, he's trying to say that if volume is 0, it doesn't mean the user is not learning. So I didn't say that, so it doesn't make sense. But then he's asking why should it be 0, or if it is 0, why the user is not listening. So I'll answer to this. It is just trying, just logical questions. Probably he's only looking at the video prototype. Probably he's not looking at the Gitbook profile. So I'll
Yeah, yeah,
send him the link, and probably that will explain about it.
yeah. I'd send him that link because that looks like what he's asking for. Where can I get more spec on the
Yeah.
spec on what's required and what's not?
Yes,
Yeah.
probably he'll understand after looking at the Gitbook profile.
So what is our answer to why time is a result, not the context?
Yeah, that.
It's a good point. We don't know. Do you have a suggestion? I think it's probably just out of habit because it's a number.
I think one logical reasoning can be that it helps determine the result. So the time value helps determine the calculation of completion, which is the result. Another thing that it does is it helps determine what part of the video he was watching, or what part of the video he was not listening. So when someone is consuming video, those are the kind of things that we can say are results. Whether user watched this part of the video or not, we can say that yes, that is kind of result.
Yeah, I guess in my mind, the way that I tend to think about it is context is data that helps you understand why the result is as it is, or why the series of events occurred as they did. And that doesn't necessarily just provide you with a value for the sake of a value. It's meant to help you with the lens of understanding the data. And I don't think in this scenario it makes sense for time to be in context because of that. It's just a static variable. It doesn't change your perception of what's going on. It just helps you understand the event of when it happened. So in that case, it makes sense for this to be in result, at least in the example that he's given. I don't think that made more sense in your description, Pankaj. So let's go with yours.
It is a complicated thing. So yes, anything we say is true for now. But yes, if we start to debate, we can debate about everything. When I start to think, the more I think, the more I'm confused.
Yeah.
So if we talk about time, then why should volume not be in result?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, the way I kind of think about it too is, anything that is in a result is usually tied to an action or a verb that has to do with the outcome of the learning event. Where you wouldn't want to go through all the other interactions, all the other statements to get result data. I mean, it's really, you're looking at terminated and completed and those types of verbs that are ending you're going to have some kind of outcome data associated with them. So, I mean, I get their point in that, this is not an outcome event, they're interacting with a statement, but you could want to know when that interaction took place. So I kind of see his point in that probably should be an optional thing. We just happen to put it that way in this reference implementation. Doesn't mean it has to be that way though.
Yeah, so we can say that whatever defines the environment in which the user is working would be kind of the context. and whatever the user is doing would be the result. So if the user is watching a video in a mute environment, so that is the environment. But in what part of the video he's watching is what the user is doing. So we can say that what the user is doing and what, like you said, affects the outcome of the video, outcome of the activity he's doing should be part of the result. That is our interpretation of experience API context and result extensions.
Yep.
Okay, so I'll write that to him. Fine. Anything else?
I didn't have anything else. I'll go back and finish up these updates, and I'll ping you guys later when I put it up there if you want to look at it.
Okay, great.
Sounds
So
good.
yes, we should focus on trying to get this released and wrap up any missing things before we do that. We have 2 more minutes. Anything?
No, so our takeaways are what? I need to update the templates. What else was there? What else did I agree to do?
Yeah, update the templates. Jason will update the JSON LD document and check for any inconsistencies. And
Okay. Hey, Jason, do you think whatever going to happen with ADL and this profile server thing, whether they just take yours and build on it or do their own, do you think there's going to be a place at some point to merge in documentation into a single site as well?
Yeah, what kind of documentation you have in mind?
I mean, like putting our Git book in the same place as like the vocab site, for example.
I mean, it's linked there now. You know, it's in the JSON LD, and if you go to xAPI.vocab.pub, actually, you want to pull it up there, Pankaj, and I'll walk you through.
Is your perspective though that they should be on different sites, documentation and the?
I mean, you know, all this is maintained on GitHub and Gitbook, so click browse there at the top. Now, if you go down to the profiles that are there, it says browse profiles, there's video down there, and there's a link to both the Gitbook site and then also the RDF, the JSON LD. I mean, the JSON LD document is profile data. I mean, profile data is just documentation too. There's like supposed to be machine readable documentation, right? But if you click on the video profile link, also, like click on the green one there, yeah. See, you see that see also link? That's reading it in from the JSON LD, which also takes you to Pankaj's GitHub page. We could change that to link to the Gitbook page, but I think that because that's the community of practice page, that's what we used for the link there. I think we can add more than one see also link if we wanted to add more than one. And you could also link to it from here. Is it on here? Is the Gitbook link on your GitHub page here still, or do you still maintain this one? Just the old.
This is what is creating the Gitbook. So whatever
okay.
changes we make there, it gets updated here.
Okay,
so,
it's synchronized here. Well, you might want to add a link to it in your README page at the top saying, click here for the, Gitbook version of this site. I think I did that on.
It is here in the xAPI video profile current draft. So online version.
Okay, perfect.
Online version is the link, and then we have a download.
Cool.
PDF
movie.
Little light reading.
So it's linked in multiple places already up there on that site. But in terms of like putting all of this, I don't know that it'll make sense because of the way the nature of the communities of practice are kind of like independently coming up with how they want to, come up with their documentation on these. A lot of people are using GitHub. I don't know that we would integrate that into the profile server, just link to it.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm going to talk to some other
Yeah,
folks this
putting
week.
everything in a common place might be a challenge due to two reasons, I guess. One reason can be that we are using Gitbook, someone might be using Word document,
Yeah.
Google Docs. So converting all those documents to a common format might be a challenge. And another challenge might be licensing. So I guess there might be some profiles which are not open source, or there might be some other licensing where they might not want to move all the document on
Well, I mean, if they're not open source, I don't really care.
ADL's repository.
That's fine. I think where it's weird is like if you go look at a cross-access documentation, Jesse's, it's completely different from ours. And if you go and look at, so who's probably the next most documented ubiquitous, it's totally different from ours too. So I guess just from from the perspective of somebody who wants to learn how to use the profiles, I just find it a little complicated every time you go to a different profile. To read about it, it looks completely different.
Yeah. So if someone can convert all those to common format, it will be easier for everyone. But that will be a lot of work, I guess.
Yeah, I think if there was a space for everybody to, I mean, there are plenty of spaces for us to write on, obviously, because we do get books and other choices. I think Jesse's on get books too, or it's just structured differently.
Yeah, I mean, part of this too is that we only started. I mean, we started this communities of practice thing like 5 years ago, or 3 or 4 years ago, or whatever, and we didn't have any practices on how to do it, and so everybody kind of did their own thing. But now we have a profile spec that kind of dictates how you should at least represent everything in a machine readable way that's consistent. But in terms of like human readable documentation, I think people are always going to have a little bit of different way of doing things. You can't like force them to write a certain way or whatever. But having this similar structure would definitely be a benefit if we followed like a common format of how, kind of like how Pankaj just put everything, and it's got like the statement model and the other pieces there, kind of in a real simple, easy way to read and find.
Would you be open to adding a template in your steps that you have on this site for the documentation?
Yeah. I think that'd be a nice addition.
We could
And
just
I
take
work
ours,
with Andy.
naturally ours is the best. Just
yeah,
as an outline.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. I'll mention that to Andy when I talk to him tomorrow. Now, it might be kind of hard to go in and do what everybody else has already done, but moving forward.
Yeah.
Yeah, and when there are questions related to video specification, there are some confusions that come up. I guess John also mentioned in last meeting, I guess, that if we can put some of those information in the profile in Gitbook, it might be easier when it is referenced with video profile specification. For example, the general template and specific templates and those kind of stuff. Or if there is a general information which we could include here, or a link somewhere, something.
I know we're over now, but I'll just throw one more question out here. Jason, are you aware if anybody's actually using the Sparkle endpoint?
Yeah, I mean, when I was involved with that video cohort, or not video cohort, the xAPI cohort, they had I think a presentation in one of the earlier weeks, and I'm trying to remember the guy's name, but they were doing stuff with Unity and xAPI, and they were trying to get a list of all the verbs, put into like an authoring type menu, and I showed them that Sparkle endpoint, and they were pretty excited about it. They didn't even know it existed. And I had a couple other emails when I was ADL of people trying to do similar things, and I had written up instructions on how to query it. So I think some people are using it. I on the side have on my to-do list to work up a little got like a little tutorial that shows how to query it and put it into a autocomplete menu instead of a drop-down menu, because there's so many verbs in there now. I do have a drop-down menu example working, but it's like, in terms of usability, it's just stupid. It's like the longest scrolling list ever. But it, but like an autocomplete, typing
Mhm.
feature would be kind of cool, right? So,
Yeah.
and we want to put that into like some of the tools we were building for Veracity. So, someone wanted to create use the statement builder thing, and right now it's a drop down menu, but it's just a predefined set of verbs. They wanted to automatically use the ones that were coming from the published profile server. An autocomplete type of feature would be nice. So I'm trying to do something with that just in my spare time.
That's cool.
It's nice.
Would there ever?
I
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
I was just gonna ask, would there ever be a reason for us to have the Sparkle, to use the Sparkle endpoint for the video.js stuff?
I don't know.
Or is that just like overkill? For it's better to
I
just
mean, so it allows you to query all of this stuff that we've put in here, like on this page, the definitions and all the underlying data that's in the JSON LD file. So if someone needed to get any specific pieces of that data for some reason, I don't know that you would need that in a video JS demo necessarily.
right. Mhm.
Maybe if you're creating like an authoring tool, like what H5P is doing, it could be useful for them, because they could have, like an autocomplete list and query that endpoint and have just the video verbs, instead of all of the verbs. But like an authoring tool for video, yeah, or any of these, authoring tools that allow you to embed video and create statements. I don't know that like Tora or Captivate or Storyline or all of those have that type of interface yet. I think Lectora has the most flexibility for that kind of thing.
It's deep, deep. Cool. Sorry, what were you gonna say, Pankaj?
Yeah. So I wanted to ask Jason, if we are releasing, is there any other requirements related to ADL? Like, do we need to create a document to be submitted to them or something like that? Because ADL's name is also involved here, so maybe there is something related to that. Do you know if?
Yeah, you mean for these profile updates we've made today or about to make?
No. So far we are doing whatever we are doing, but when we release this video profile, because ADL is also part of this effort, do we need to submit any document to them or do anything that is required as part of formality related to release of the video profile?
No, I mean, we don't have to do anything formal, but publish it to that ADL repository, and then they import it into this profile server.
Mhm.
But I mean, if we wanted to use them to get us some exposure, we could, ask them if they'd make some announcement on their website.
Yeah, that would be great.
Yep, we could do that. I could talk to Andy about that tomorrow too.
Okay, great. So are they doing more of these community of practices, or they have stopped?
I don't know that they're just not proact. They're not really proactively doing anything, to the best of my knowledge. I know they had a big turnover in staff 6 months ago or so,
Okay.
and I don't know that they're as technical or have that many technical folks doing this type of stuff. But I think it's just been one of those kind of organic things where people can form one if they want to. Um, I definitely think ADL should have a bit more oversight and involvement in it, but
Yeah.
I don't know that it's going to change.
Yeah. Because
But
current,
if xAPI moves over to IEEE for standardization, perhaps we can come up with something better over there, more formal, process and better, more proactive involvement with getting these profiles knocked off.
yeah, it depends on who gets involved and how much. So
Yeah.
so after you left ADL, it is like currently there is not much involvement of ADL in video profile after that.
Yeah, or xAPI in general. Just I don't think they have the expertise anymore. But except for maybe Andy's the only one left over there.
Mhm.
Um, you know, Jesse is leading a profile subcommittee group that I've been uh, working on or attending lately, and they're trying to do some profile work for the ebook EPUB profile that they're doing. They're trying to plan some other activities and stuff. So if you guys want to get involved with that, I mean, there's like 10 different xAPI meetings, it seems like, through IEEE right now. I'm trying to figure out which ones I can get involved in. So I know John's already got one of his own going too with the learning analytics special
Yeah,
interest group.
I had actually talked to Jesse in one of our meetings about a potential merger at some point between. I think you're talking about John's group. Jesse does join it, and she's the head of the group above John's group. But I think that's John's. So we talked about merging my group with
I think you
that
guys
profile group.
should. That's a really good idea, just to make better use of everyone's time, because not everybody can attend all three of those groups.
Yeah, I think they decided they wanted to wait a little bit first, but
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, now that we have a clear direction for what we're doing after sort of like batting around for a couple months,
Yeah.
I think it's a little less of an issue now. So we'll just.
I think
see what
there are
happens.
too many meetings going on, but I don't know what is going on in them because I haven't been able to attend. So,
Right.
so there are several groups related to icicle, and then there are several groups, I guess, related to the.
Tag.
Yeah, there is a tag group, and then there is there. I guess there are several groups related to the new IEEE working group as well.
Right.
Or I guess it is not formed, but there will be at least 2-3 groups, I guess, related to the working group for xAPI standardization in IEEE.
Yeah, I haven't really. I'm hoping to make this next one. It's just so early in the morning, and there are so many meetings already, as you guys said.
But the number of people actively involved, I don't know if that has increased a lot.
I feel so. Like, well, yeah, I feel like there's a lot of new people involved recently, at least in my spheres, and I think Jono's stuff is. I think there's quite a few people participating in that one. The actual IEEE spec meeting.
Yeah, I haven't been able to attend many meetings, so I cannot say if that expands, it is really great.
Yeah. Well, hopefully they do get things going here for standardization, and out of that, maybe some more of a focus on profiles. It is a lot of work to do this stuff. And I
Yeah.
think we've got some good experience here to share and offer on how to do it after learning as we went along,
One profile that I had always wanted to get started was something related to the general activities that go on in an LMS kind of environment, like login, log out, and then
Yeah.
posting.
I just talked to somebody about that too. Go ahead, Jason. I'll follow up after you.
Well, I was going to say, CMI 5 is supposed to be kind of the profile for all the LMS type of activities, but
CMI5 doesn't do that.
it doesn't do LMS specific events. Yeah.
It doesn't do these general events that happen in most of the LMSs or websites or whatever.
Yeah.
So
That would be a good profile. I mean, we've done some work with that with Moodle, converting LMS events to xAPI statements, but it's going to be different for every LMS. But they do kind of usually call those types of events the same thing, like enrollments and curriculums, but some of them do call things differently. So, but if there was a profile that would help kind of make all that data standardized, if you're trying to get out of an LMS, I think that would be a useful profile.
Yeah, so I guess a lot of people are using those events, but the verb might be different and the verb ID might be different, and those kind of differences might be there. And it'll be like being able to create an audit trail of whatever is going on, maybe in the admin side as well as on the user side, apart from the actual learning that is happening.
Right. Yeah. That would be I think that'd be a very valuable group. It'd be hard to do without some LMS vendors or people with LMS expertise for each of those LMSs to get involved. But it makes you wonder if the vendors might get kind of paranoid about that. You're not taking our data out of the LMS. Threatened about it. So
it depends on them whether they want to implement it. But if that profile is available, if anyone is trying to implement those things, they don't have to think what statement they need to build. They'll know how to build those statements. So I wanted to start that kind of group, if that helps.
Yeah, and like I said, I know that's come up, and I definitely think there's some things you can definitely borrow from or start working with. Like I know there's an xAPI plugin for Sakai that Alan Berg and his group put together, so they have statements for at least some general Sakai interactions. And then when we had that last meeting with, that was with Jesse's group, that Anthony White came to and did his discussion about Caliper, he made I think at least one good comment about. I mean, he made plenty of good comments, but one of the things he pointed out was that they have a profile or whatever they call it for some general LMS interactions like logging in and logging out. So we could definitely look at what they have too as a way of just scaffolding.
Yep. And Moodle Log Store there's a plugin for Moodle called Log Store, and it converts xAPI. So that's another one to look at.
Yeah. So with those information combined, I guess it will not be as bulky effort as we have been doing on this video profile, but once such profile is there, it'll be helpful for, I guess, a lot of LMSs.
Yeah, definitely. Even like we build a lot of our sites custom through WordPress because our ITS department doesn't give us access to do things in Sakai. So I mean, it would be helpful for us too, even though we're just using a CMS. We would be happy to align logged in, logged out, view whatever those statements are for that profile to what we do as well.
Yeah, so probably we should at some time call a meeting and get this started, because I don't think we'll have too much work on video profile after a few months.
Yeah, I would probably suggest doing it through IEEE, since that's where everything seems to be at this moment.
Yeah, I agree.
I didn't get what you said.
I said I would suggest, if you want to do that group, to do it through IEEE, through one of the SIGs there, because there's a lot of active people in that group right now, and it'd be easier to get people to participate that way.
Yeah, I don't think ADL's hosting any meetings really anymore on xAPI. They're not. Everybody's kind of getting involved in the IEEE efforts.
So do you mean a new SIG in the iCycle?
I don't know if it's going to be a new one. I mean, it probably could be. I think you could do it under Jesse's. I don't see why that would be a problem, but there might be another SIG that makes sense.
Hey, I think this would be a great email to send out to the community and say, hey, Pankaj here. We did, you could make an announcement. Hey, we've done a lot of stuff with the video profile. It's a stable version. We're thinking about starting another community practice around LMS tracking. Where should I start this community of practice, and just see how people respond.
There's a SIG called Learning Technology Data Standards under Icicle. I don't know if they've started or not, but that it could go there as well.
Yeah, that would be maybe a good first project.
Divinia? I don't think I know. Person.
Data, what did you say?
I think this person's name is Divinia. I think that's how you pronounce that. Fernandez Leo. I don't think I've met this person. So. But anyways, yeah. So there's at least 2 SIGs. I think Jesse's and this person Divinia's that it could go under. If not, something else. But Jason's suggestion is good. Email people in, see what they think.
Okay, great.
Yeah, I mean, I think that xAPI spec email address is still valid. I think it is.
I guess it has started bouncing.
Did it start bouncing? I mean, it wasn't. I remember sending a message a while back because I had sent an email about Unity and xAPI back in April, and it didn't bounce. But it did bounce to. Oh wait, it did bounce initially. Oh wait, it did bounce. You're right. And then I sent an email to ADL, and they said, "Hey, it's not okay. Yeah."
That's why no one got back to me.
Okay. So that email does not work anymore. You're right. So I mean, like ADL can't do anything. Like they killed they moved away from Google Apps and moved to Office 365, and it killed all those those email capabilities for the Google groups they had set up. But you can go to the Google group and write a post, discussion post, and people will get the email that way. But you cannot send an email through your email. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah.
That's what I had to do. I had to go find the Google group to send the message.
That is great to know. I thought that group is gone.
Yeah, no, the group's still there if you look for it on Google under Google Groups, but you just can't email it. You have to post to the discussion forum there.
Okay, great. That's not a problem.
And I messaged Andy and them. I said you should let everybody know about this because they're gonna assume everything's dead when these emails bounce. But I don't think they did anything.
Yeah, this is what I had thought that it is gone. Fine. So I think we are already way over time. So probably we can end here today, and then yes, I'll think about this LMS group and then send an email.
Yeah, it's good catching up with you guys.
Great.
I'll let you know when I make these updates here, probably by tomorrow.
Okay, great.
All right, take care.
Thanks.
All right, bye.
See you guys.
Bye.